Sometimes, you know, the stories that really grab you aren't about something brand spanking new. It's more about, like, the hard work of renewal, you know,
Yeah.
giving something that's seen better days another shot. And that's kind of what's going on right now in downtown Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, for a long time, when folks pictured downtown Gary, they might have thought uh, blight, abandoned buildings, really run down. And it's not just that they look bad. They can be straight up dangerous, and they kind of hold the city back.
It's like, a really obvious sign of things not being great, right? And if you want to make things better for the long haul, you got to deal with that stuff head on. I mean, those buildings aren't just empty. They can attract crime, they can be unsafe, and that affects the people who live there every single day.
Well, the good news is there's this big push to do something about it. Downtown Gary's getting $6 million to deal with blight.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
$3 million is coming straight from Hard Rock Casino, and then there's another $3 million as a matching grant from the Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority. That's the RDA.
And that matching thing is really important, right?
Figured.
Because it's thanks to Indiana Senate Bill 434.
Exactly.
It's really interesting to see how everything's lining up right. You've got the need, and then the laws are changing to address it. Then you've got businesses stepping up, and then regional support, too. It's like a really, really smart, multi-pronged approach to dealing with a really complicated problem.
Totally. So for this deep dive, we're going deep on a bunch of articles and analyses you sent me, all about these initiatives in Gary. They're focused on downtown and the Etna neighborhood. And, you know, we want to get to the heart of it, understand what's happening, who's making it happen, and what it means for Gary, without getting lost in all the little details, you know?
Yeah. We want to give folks a clear picture of the plan, introduce the folks who are making it happen, and show the progress that's already been made. It's not just listing facts. It's about understanding the why behind it all and like what the long-term impact could be for the city and everyone living there.
Right. And spearheading this whole thing is Mayor Eddie Melton. He's got this really cool vision for downtown Gary. He
Yeah.
wants to make it a place where people want to live, a place where you can just walk around. And, you know, you got to remember how close Gary is to Chicago and that whole area.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of potential there just waiting to be unlocked.
Big time. Using that location well, that's going to be crucial. A downtown that's like bustling and fun, that attracts people not just from Gary, but from the whole region.
Okay, so here's the plan for our deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to break down that crucial piece of legislation, Senate Bill 434.
Foundation.
Yeah, the foundation. We're going to look at the roles of the RDA, Hard Rock Casino, all the big players. Then we'll dive into some projects that are happening right now, like that parking garage next to the Genesis Convention Center that they want to tear down.
Sure.
And we'll check out what's already happening in Etna, you know, real change on the ground. By the time we're done, you should have a solid understanding of everything going on in Cary,
And all the possibilities.
all the possibilities. All right, let's kick things off with that game-changing law, Senate Bill 434.
Okay, so Senate Bill 434. It became law in 2023, and it's the backbone of all this funding going on now. And get this, it was actually written by Eddie Melton himself back when he was a state senator, before he was mayor. The bill's main goal is pretty straightforward. It wants to boost the economy, specifically in Lake County.
And it does that by,
Well, one of the ways is by setting up something called the Blighted Property Demolition Fund.
the name says it all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
This fund is all about covering the costs of tearing down buildings that have been officially labeled as blighted. But, and this is key, there's a catch. Those properties have to be either in an existing or future transit development district or really close to the Gary Metro Center.
So not just any old rundown building.
Nope.
It's really targeted, huh?
Super targeted. The bill links getting rid of blight to places that already have or are planned to have good public transport.
That's pretty smart.
Right, but wait, there's more.
Right.
Senate Bill 434 doesn't stop there. It also gives Lake County the power to increase its innkeeper's tax, the tax on hotels and stuff. And it sets up a few more funds, all aimed at broader improvements, like economic development, infrastructure, things like that. You've got the Lake County Economic Development and Convention Fund, and then there's the Gary Metro Center Station Revitalization Fund.
So it's like a whole package deal.
It is. And here's where it gets interesting in terms of the long game. The bill sets up a future funding stream, too. So after June 30, 2025, A chunk of the money that Gary's Hard Rock Casino makes from gambling, that's
Okay.
going to be directed to these different funds, including the one for demolition.
That's a clever way to keep the money coming in.
Right.
It ties the city's revival to how well the casino does.
Exactly.
Pretty cool.
It is. And that's what's making this $6 million for the downtown projects possible. Senate Bill 434 basically lets the city access that money from the state demolition fund, specifically for projects in that transit development district, the one around the Adam Benjamin metro station.
But there's a catch, right?
Yeah. The state's putting in $6 million, but the city has to match it with another $6 million from local sources. And that's where Hard Rock Casino's $3 million donation is so important. That covers half the match right there.
Boom.
Boom.
And where's the other half coming from?
The last $3 million to meet that matching requirement, that's coming from the American Rescue Plan Act. They call it ARPA. The Gary Common Council, they approved that allocation back in December 2024.
So you see how this all works together. It's like a chain reaction. The bill kicks things off, then local partnerships and federal funding jump in to make it even bigger.
It really does.
And it all comes back to that idea of linking blight removal with transit development, right? Focusing the resources around the Gary Metro Center makes the whole area more connected, more attractive to like businesses and investors.
And, we have to point out that Mayor Melton was super involved in creating Senate Bill 434 when he was a senator. That shows you how dedicated he is to fixing this, It wasn't just something he thought of after he became mayor. He was already laying the groundwork.
Yeah, long-term vision, super important. And okay, so that future money from the casino tax, it's great, but it does depend on the casino doing well, right?
Yeah.
What if things change?
Yeah, that's something to think about. Having all your eggs in one basket, especially one that's tied to gambling, it can be risky. I mean, the economy goes up and down, and there's always competition. To be really safe, it's good to have a bunch of different ways to get funding, just in case.
We've actually got a handy table here summarizing all these funding sources.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the State Blight Property Demolition Fund, $6 million, but they need to match that. Then Hard Rock Casino's donation, $3 million, plus the $3 million from ARPA funds. That's the $6 million match. And then after June 30, 2025, we've got the riverboat wagering tax money, but we don't know how much that'll be yet. See it all laid out like this, it shows how all the pieces fit together.
It's a puzzle.
It is. All right, let's move on to another big player. Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority, the RDA.
Okay, so the RDA is a crucial partner in all this. They're all about making Northwest Indiana's economy stronger, building things up. They focus on what makes the region special and how to make it competitive, like on a global scale.
So they're thinking big picture.
Huge picture. They're involved in all sorts of projects, expanding rail lines, developing the Gary-Chicago International Airport.
Serious stuff.
Yeah, they're not messing around. And when it comes to Gary's downtown, they're mainly involved through that matching grant program, the one that Senate Bill 434 made possible. They've pledged a total of $6 million to get rid of blighted buildings in downtown Gary, especially around the metro station.
So, like the state funding, the RDA is also really focused on that transit hub.
Exactly. That $6 million from the RDA, it's split into two parts. $3 million was given out this year, 2024. And the other $3 million, that's coming after July Hort, 2025. But just like the state money, the RDA's money depends on the city finding the matching funds, which, thankfully, the donation from Hard Rock Casino is a huge help with.
So it's like this layered system,
Yeah.
The state says, we'll give you money, but you got to match it. And then the RDA says, okay, we'll give you money too, but only if you've already got that match. It kind of forces everyone to work together and invest in their own success.
Totally. It's all about shared responsibility and teamwork, right? David Wellman, he's the RDA's communication director. He said publicly that they really believe in Gary's potential and they want to help the city make this comeback happen. Having that kind of support from the region is super valuable.
It shows that they see Gary as part of a bigger picture,
Yeah.
Gary doing well is good for everyone in Northwest Indiana.
It's all connected. And it's not just about tearing stuff down either. The RDA is also big on something called transit-oriented development, or TOD. It's all about making the areas around the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, or NICTD stations, better and more user-friendly.
Makes sense, right?
It does.
You make the area around the station nicer, more accessible. People will use public transit more.
Exactly.
And that can lead to even more development in the area.
Exactly. Oh, and another thing. Back in 2023, the RDA commissioned a feasibility study for a Lake County Convention Center. Now you might think, what does that have to do with Blight? But it shows that they're thinking about the future potential of the Genesis Convention Center, the one we talked about earlier. It could be a big driver for the economy and bring in tourists.
So they're not just focused on the here and now, they're thinking about the future, laying the groundwork for long-term growth.
Exactly. Their focus on matching funds really shows how important the Gary Metro Station area is to them. It's like the starting point for this whole revitalization thing. They're putting resources there to make a good first impression and get things moving. And get this, the RBA could even help get up to $75 million in state matching funds to build a brand new Gary Metro downtown station. That's a long-term vision right there.
Whoa, $75 million. That would be a game changer for downtown Gary.
Like, big time. And, the RDA requiring local matching funds, that's what's encouraging these awesome partnerships, like the Hard Rock Casino donation, right?
Does everyone work together?
Yeah,
Chip
it
in.
creates a team spirit. Okay, so we can add the RDA's $6 million matching grant to our list. That's a lot of money for this project.
It is. Okay, so Mayor Melton has used a kind of strong, maybe even controversial word to talk about these abandoned buildings. He called them ruin porn.
Whoa.
It's a loaded term. What does he mean by that?
So ruin porn, it's kind of this, photography thing. People taking pictures of abandoned places, especially in cities that used to be big industrial centers, like Detroit, old factories, schools, even houses, all falling apart.
So it's like finding beauty in decay.
Yeah, kinda. They focus on the textures, the light and shadows, that feeling of a lost world even. Sometimes it's like a post-apocalyptic vibe, but for Mayor Melton, it's more about safety. He's talked about seeing videos online, like on YouTube, of people going into these dangerous abandoned buildings in downtown Gary.
So he's not saying the photos are bad. He's just worried about people getting hurt in these places.
Yeah, that's his main concern. These buildings, they're often not secure, Anyone going in there could get hurt.
Makes sense. So he's using ruin porn to talk about this idea of being fascinated by decay, which can be dangerous,
Right.
and also to show that the city is focused on making these places safe, not just letting them fall apart.
Exactly. He's pointing out the difference between someone looking at a photo and thinking it looks cool and the actual danger these buildings pose to people who live nearby.
It's a different perspective, for sure.
It is. And there's this whole debate around ruin porn, right? Some people say it makes these cities look bad, like it's just focusing on the negative and ignoring the people who are struggling.
Like it's romanticizing poverty.
Yeah. But other people say that these photos can actually bring attention to the problem, make people talk about it, maybe even inspire some creative ideas for fixing things up.
So there's no easy answer, huh?
Nope. But the fact that Mayor Melton is using this term shows that he's aware of the whole thing. He knows that these images can attract the wrong kind of attention, and they don't show the whole story.
And, the city tearing down these buildings, that's a direct response to that ruin porn idea. They're saying, we're not just going to let these places decay. We're going to make them safe. We're going to make things better.
Exactly. They're taking action. Okay, so let's talk about a specific part of downtown that's a big focus for Mayor Melton. The area around the Genesis Convention Center. There are two different things happening there, two different stories, really.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
So the area around the Genesis Convention Center, that's a prime target for getting rid of blight. And there are these two main structures, the parking garage and the convention center itself. The plan is to tear down the parking garage. It's been closed for years because it's, falling apart.
So that's step one, kind of clearing the way.
Yep. It's an eyesore and it's dangerous. Once that's gone, they're going to use the rest of the money from Hard Rock Casino to tear down other empty, rundown buildings around the convention center. The good news is the city already owns a bunch of those properties. They might have to buy a few more, but it's a good start.
Sounds like a focused effort to really change how that whole area looks and feels.
Exactly. But here's the thing. They're tearing down the parking garage and those other buildings, but the Genesis Convention Center itself, that's staying put.
Really? I thought that was pretty run down, too.
It is. But Mayor Melton, he believes in that building. He wants to see it fixed up and used again, maybe for events or something. He's thinking about partnerships to make that happen.
He's got a vision.
He does. He talks about how important that building is to the community. It hosted basketball games, graduations, weddings, banquets, all kinds of stuff. It opened back in 1981, so it's been part of the city for a long time.
So it's got history.
Tons. And it's a big place. The main arena can hold 6,500 to 7,000 people for basketball. It's got a big open floor, high ceiling. And then there's Indiana Hall. attached to it that can fit 1,200 people, so you can do all sorts of events there. It was even home to the Gary Steelheads basketball team and the Gary Splash. And it hosted the Miss USA pageant a couple of times back in 2001 and 2002.
So it's been a pretty big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad to see it empty now. But, back in the 80s, when they were trying to revitalize downtown Gary, the Genesis Convention Center was a big part of that plan.
So they've always seen its potential.
They have. Saving it and fixing it up, it's not just about nostalgia. They think it can still play a big role in Gary's future.
It's symbolic.
It is. But Mayor Melton says they need the right partner to make it work. Someone who can run it well and make sure it's financially stable. Sounds like they're thinking about a public-private partnership.
Combining resources.
Exactly. But, the fact that they tried this before and it didn't quite work out, it shows how tough this is. They need a really good plan this time.
It's not just about fixing the building, it's about what happens afterwards.
Yep. So they're looking into whether it's even possible to reopen the Genesis Convention Center for events.
That's a big question.
It is. And they've hired a company to figure that out, Powers & Sons Construction.
Powers & Sons,
Oh,
they sound familiar.
they've been around a long time. It's a family-owned business, third generation, and they're really good at what they do. They do general contracting, construction management, all sorts of stuff. They even work as owners' representatives. They've done some big projects like expanding the Indiana Convention Center and Lucas Oil Stadium. Those are huge. And they have an office in Gary, so they're local.
So they know the area.
They do, and they have a great reputation for quality work. We don't know what they've found yet, but there was an assessment done a while back, and it said that just to get the basic stuff working in the Genesis Convention Center, they'd need like $10 million.
$10 million just for the basics.
Yeah. Think about things like the lights, the heating and cooling, just getting the utilities up and running.
That's a lot of money.
It is. But having Powers & Sons involved, it shows that the city's serious about this. They want a real, honest assessment. Their expertise is crucial, They'll tell the city what kind of shape the building's in, how much it'll cost to fix, what the challenges are. And that $10 million figure for just the basic stuff, it tells you this is going to be a massive project, probably done in phases. And they'll need to find the money and the right partners.
It's a big undertaking.
It is. So beyond all this funding, is there any chance Gary could get more help from the state or federal government?
That's a good question.
There's this program in Indiana called the Regional Economic Acceleration and Development Initiative, READI.
READI.
Yeah. It's a state program pushed by Governor Eric Holcomb. It's all about improving quality of life, making Indiana a better place to live. It encourages different regions to work together, come up with plans to boost their economies.
So it's about making Indiana more attractive to people and businesses.
Exactly. They had a round of funding in 2021, gave out $500 million, and now there's a second round, READI 2.0, another $500 million up for grabs.
That's a lot of money. And Mayor Melton's hoping to get some of that for Gary.
Oh, yeah. Northwest Indiana, which includes Gary, submitted a proposal, and they were awarded $45 million in READI 2.0 funding.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. And luckily, READI 2.0 can be used for projects that reduce blight and support redevelopment, which is exactly what Gary's trying to do. Oh, and Gary actually already got some money from READI in the first round for the Tolleson Opportunity Hub project. Mayor Melton is really good at finding these opportunities, using state resources to help Gary bounce back. And since Northwest Indiana got so much money, there's a good chance that some of it will go to Gary's projects.
It sounds like they're really making the most of every opportunity. Now, we've talked a lot about downtown, but you mentioned earlier that things are also happening in neighborhoods like Etna.
Oh, yeah.
It's important to remember that revitalization can't just be about downtown. The residential areas need help too.
Absolutely. The Melton administration is really focused on stabilizing neighborhoods, and they picked Etna as their first big project. It had a lot of blighted properties, And what they've done there is pretty impressive. Just in 2024, they tore down 35 blighted buildings in Etna. But here's what's even cooler. During that same time, 49 different property owners in Etna fixed up their homes. Some even did full renovations. That shows you that people are invested in their community, They see things getting better and they want to be part of it.
That's such a great sign.
It is. And it hasn't stopped. In 2025, they've already approved over 20 more properties for demolition in Etna. And get this, a lot of construction companies have been volunteering to help. They're donating their time, their skills, even their equipment to get this done.
Wow, that's really something. Shows how
Sure.
much people care about their city.
It does. And the city isn't just going around tearing things down willy-nilly. They have a process, It's run by the Department of Redevelopment, and they follow the state's unsafe building law. They do their research, make sure the property owners know what's happening.
So it's all above board.
Totally. And it's a team effort, too.
Hmm.
The fire department, police, health department, public works, parks department, they all work together to make sure everything goes smoothly.
It's really well organized.
It is. Mayor Melton's really proud of what they've done in Etna. He keeps saying that it's about building up our community,
Right.
making it safer, better for everyone. And people who live in Etna, they're seeing these changes and they're hopeful. They're excited about the future. And you know what? City officials have noticed that more people are buying vacant lots and fixing up old houses all over Gary. Maybe it's because they're seeing what happened in Etna and they're thinking, hey, maybe our neighborhood can be next.
It's contagious in a good way.
It is. Seeing those changes, it makes you want to be part of it. And those 49 home renovations in an Etna, they're estimated to have brought in $3.1 million of private investment. That's a huge boost for the neighborhood. Focusing on Etna first, it was a smart move. It showed what's possible, they learned a lot, and now they can use that knowledge in other neighborhoods like Midtown and Emerson. All those demolitions and renovations in Etna, it shows that their plan and that partnership with the construction companies, it's working.
It's a model for success.
Exactly. It's like the public sector clearing the way and then the private sector coming in and building things up. It's teamwork.
It really is. So it sounds like Gary's on the right track.
It does. They have a solid plan, the money to make it happen, and they're making real progress. They're focusing on downtown, but they're not forgetting about the neighborhoods. And they're getting help from the state and the community. They're definitely building some serious momentum.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Gary's comeback story, here's something to think about. We've seen the laws, the partnerships, the projects, the community involvement. What do you think are the most important ingredients for a city like Gary to truly succeed? What does it take to revitalize a city that's faced so many challenges? And what about the people? How do we make sure that everyone benefits from these changes? That's not just about buildings, but about making life better for everyone who calls Gary home.